Insta360 X5 is the best 360 camera you can currently buy. The quality of the 360 recordings is really great. But is the X5 so good that it can replace a traditional action camera like the Ace Pro 2 in every respect? And if you only want to buy one of these cameras, should you go for the X5 or the Ace Pro 2? For me personally, the answer is relatively clear. But everyone has their own specific needs. So today I'm going to show you the 5 most important strengths of the Ace Pro 2 and the X5 in direct comparison. At the end of the video I've defined 5 types of users and tell you which user I would recommend which camera to. And then I'll also tell you which camera I would personally choose. But before we look at the strengths and the buying advice, I would like to show you 2 somewhat longer direct comparison shots. This X5 shot here was taken in 360 mode in 8K 30, reframed and then exported in 4K. The shot of the Ace Pro 2 was taken in 4K 30. As you can see, the reframed 360 recording can also keep up relatively well in direct comparison in terms of image quality. But in my opinion, something else is even more important. The 2 cameras produce a completely different look. The shot of the X5 is much wider and shows more of the surroundings, while the shot of the Ace Pro 2 is closer to the subject. The cameras also produce different colors. The colors of the shot of the X5 have a little more saturation and often more yellow tones. This often makes the shot look a little warmer. And no matter what I tell you today, this different look is definitely one of the biggest differences between the 2 cameras. Which camera is the better choice for you, therefore depends very much on what you personally like better and which look you prefer for your shots. So keep this in mind when looking at the following sample shots. By the way, several comparison shots in low light will follow later. For which of the 2 cameras do you think the low light performance is a strength? We'll find out soon, because now we come to the 5 most important strengths of the 2 cameras in direct comparison. As a 360 camera, the X5 of course has a very special strength compared to the Ace Pro 2. You can freely select the optimum framing in post. This means you don't have to worry about the right framing during the recording. And that's a huge advantage, especially if you're filming yourself, as it's not always possible to set the right framing during recording. However, this advantage and this freedom also comes with a disadvantage. Every 360 shot has to be edited in post. This is relatively quick and there is also a well-functioning tracking feature. But you should be aware that this step is always necessary for 360 recordings. If you occasionally need a conventional video clip that you want to share immediately, the X5 also offers the so-called single lens mode. The single lens mode allows you to shoot in 4K and at up to 60 frames per second with just one of the 2 lenses. Such a shot therefore does not need to be reframed and the camera behaves like a traditional action camera in this mode. And the shots are quite good. Here you can see a direct comparison with a shot from the Ace Pro 2. I also think that the image quality in single lens mode on the X5 has improved significantly compared to the X4, and as you can see, the X5 also performs very well in single lens mode compared to the Ace Pro 2. Nevertheless, the special strength of the X5 is the 360 mode. In 360 mode, the X5 can shoot in 8K at up to 30 frames per second. But as you still have to reframe these shots, the result of your 360 shot is not an 8K image, but a relatively strong crop of this recording. Due to the high resolution of 8K, however, the reframed clip is still relatively high resolution. The video is exported in 4K, but the real resolution is closer to 2.7K. And that brings us to the great strength of the Ace Pro 2 in this comparison. The Ace Pro 2 cannot take 360 shots, but it's also capable of shooting in 8K. But this is an 8K recording that does not need to be cropped, and the recordings in 4K are also very detailed and sharp. And in a direct comparison, you can see the difference to shots from the X5. This applies to a comparison with reframed 8K 360 clips, as well as to a comparison with single lens recordings from the X5 in 4K. In both cases, the footage from the Ace Pro 2 contains more detail and looks a bit better. Of course, how noticeable the difference is also depends on which device you are watching your recordings on. While the higher resolution is barely noticeable on a smartphone, the difference is more noticeable on a large, high-resolution monitor. But the 360 mode of the X5 not only offers the advantage of reframing. Another decisive advantage of a 360 shot is that the selfie stick automatically disappears from the shot. You don't have to do anything. The invisible selfie stick is automatic. And this effect gives your shot a very special look. The shots look very interesting and many people will ask you how it was even possible to take this shot. It's interesting to note that with the Ace Pro 2, the selfie stick can also be removed from the shot via the app by using a special effect. However, this feature cannot be compared with the invisible selfie stick effect of a 360 camera. Rather, in the case of the Ace Pro 2, the stick is erased from the shot in the same way as when editing an image in Photoshop. This is only possible via the app and for shorter clips, and the result does not look nearly as good as the invisible selfie stick effect of the X5. On the other hand, the Ace Pro 2 offers another very important advantage that is important for action cameras. It can take high-resolution slow-motion shots in 4K. In 4K, the Ace Pro 2 can shoot at up to 120 frames per second. And if you often want to film action-packed scenes, this is a big advantage and simply looks cool. With the X5 in 360 mode, you have to reduce the resolution to 4K for 120 frames per second. Since you still have to reframe a 360 recording, you will then get a slow motion recording in a reduced image quality. The shot is still very usable, especially for social media, but it cannot keep up with the image quality of a slow motion shot from the Ace Pro 2. In single lens mode, a maximum of 60 frames per second is available on the X5. It's important for me to clarify that both cameras were provided to me by Insta360. But that this video does not include any additional paid sponsorship. As mentioned at the beginning, the X5 has a much wider field of view, at least for 360 shots. And when it comes to action cameras, I see this as a clear advantage, especially if you're filming yourself. The extremely wide field of view creates a very immersive look. When you're biking, for example, you get a very good impression of the activity and you can also see more of the surroundings. And that's what you want when you're filming yourself biking. A close-up is not so useful here. Both cameras are marketed as action cameras. It must therefore be said that the body of the Ace Pro 2 is somewhat better suited for using it as an action camera. There are several reasons for this. The protruding lenses of the X5 represent a weak point depending on the intended use. They can be damaged relatively easily under certain circumstances. Of course, the lens cover of the X5 can now be replaced relatively easily if damaged using such a lens replacement kit. This is one of the great innovations of the X5. Apart from that, the Ace Pro 2 is also slightly lighter than the X5. But the difference is not that great. The difference in form factor is more decisive. The elongated form factor of the X5 can be a disadvantage depending on the mount. It is well suited to using the X5 on a selfie stick, which is also the optimal use for a 360 camera. The elongated form factor, on the other hand, is more of a disadvantage if you want to attach your camera to a helmet or a chest mount. And there is another aspect you should be aware of. The Ace Pro 2 is waterproof up to 12 meters, the X5 even up to 15, both without a dive case. But to be able to take 360 shots underwater, you need a special dive case. Without a dive case, lens stitching does not work underwater, and you can only use the X5 underwater in single lens mode without a dive case. The Ace Pro 2 also has a magnetic mount. This allows you to quickly and easily remove the camera and attach it somewhere else. The X5, on the other hand, has a 1/4 inch thread on the underside, which of course also allows you to attach the camera relatively flexibly. All in all, however, I would say that the body of the Ace Pro 2 has a few advantages for an action camera. The extremely wide field of view, the invisible selfie stick effect, and the reframing offer in combination the biggest advantage of the X5 for me. You can take particularly creative and unusual shots with the X5. You can capture angles that are only possible in this form with a 360 camera, and your shots will often amaze people and many will wonder how you manage to take them. The X5 therefore has decisive advantages, especially if you are creative. It's simply fun to try something new and take shots that are rarely seen in this form. The dynamic range on the X5 has been significantly improved compared to the X4. Nevertheless, I would say that the Ace Pro 2 still has a slight advantage in this regard. The HDR mode has been integrated into the standard video mode on both cameras, and it works very well. HDR looks very good and natural on both cameras. The images are rich in contrast and don't have an artificial HDR look. But HDR on the X5 is limited to a resolution of 5.7K. HDR is not available in 8K. That's why I would usually shoot on the X5 without HDR. On the Ace Pro 2, on the other hand, I usually shoot in 4K with HDR activated, which of course gives an advantage in a direct comparison. But the X5 has another advantage over the Ace Pro 2 that many people are not aware of. It has a visibly better image stabilization than the Ace Pro 2. You can see here in direct comparison that the image is better stabilized in the shot of the X5. This is despite the fact that the Ace Pro 2 also has well-functioning image stabilization. But as a 360 camera, the X5 also benefits from its extremely wide field of view. And the Ace Pro 2 has another very relevant advantage in direct comparison. It is cheaper than the X5. The Ace Pro 2 currently costs $400. While the X5 is $150 more expensive at $550. But there is a very good offer for the Ace Pro 2 at the moment, and it's therefore currently available at a significantly lower price. If you use one of the links, you will also receive a free gift. In the case of the X5, currently even one of these extremely useful lens replacement kits. But what about low light? Let's take a look at a few comparison shots to see why low light is not a real strength of either camera in this comparison. Both cameras have their own recording mode for low light, the pure video mode. This mode is optimized for situations with poor lighting conditions. And as you can see, it's not so easy to see a clear winner here. Yes, in this shot here, the Ace Pro 2 exposes the face brighter, and so the shot looks slightly better. But the shot from the Ace Pro 2 also has more image noise. And when I look at this comparison shot here without an actual subject, I would no longer say that the Ace Pro 2 performs better. The Ace Pro 2 shot may even have a little more noise than the X5 shot. I would therefore say, yes, the exposure of the face is slightly better with the Ace Pro 2, but purely in terms of image quality, it's a draw for me. Which is not surprising. After all, both cameras have sensors of roughly the same size. On the other hand, you should also be aware of two other very important differences between the two cameras. The Ace Pro 2 can shoot in 4K 30 for 1 hour and 42 minutes until the battery runs out. For comparable image quality, you have to shoot in 8K 30 with the X5, and it can do that for 1 hour and 27 minutes. The Ace Pro 2 has no problem with overheating here in the office at 22 degrees Celsius. The X5 switches off after 1 hour and 19 minutes in 8K 30. In summer at very high temperatures, I would therefore say that the Ace Pro 2 in 4K will have fewer problems with overheating than the X5 in 8K. I think you now know the most important strengths of the two cameras in a direct comparison. There are two things you should remember in particular. The shots of the X5 have a completely different look than the shots of the Ace Pro 2 due to their particularly wide field of view. And you shouldn't forget that you have to edit all 360 shots from the X5 in post and determine the optimal framing. So you should be willing to do this step, because the single lens mode of the X5 doesn't offer the many advantages of the 360 mode. I think you have now developed a feeling for which camera might suit you better. I will now tell you which camera I would personally recommend to which user group. If you have little experience with cameras and don't yet own an action camera, then I would recommend the Ace Pro 2. It's not that the X5 is particularly difficult to use, but reframing is an additional editing step, and the many shooting modes and setting options of the X5 are perhaps more suitable for a more advanced user. If, on the other hand, you already have some experience with cameras, especially action cameras, and perhaps already own an action camera, albeit an older one, then I would definitely recommend the X5. The reframing, the invisible selfie stick effect, and the special field of view simply allow you to take particularly creative and innovative shots. In my opinion, the added value is therefore significantly greater than the slightly better image quality of a new conventional action camera. If you mainly shoot for social media, then I would recommend the X5. For social media, the highest possible resolution is not so important, but the many creative possibilities of the X5 allow you to take shots that make you stand out from the masses. You can also freely choose between a horizontal and vertical format when shooting in 360 mode. The Me mode of the X5 also enables 360 shots in which the camera automatically keeps the subject in the center of the frame. No reframing is necessary, and there is also the invisible selfie stick effect, ideal for vlogging. If on the other hand you are looking for a camera for shooting sports, then in my opinion it very much depends on what sport you are doing and which mount you want to use for it. If you mostly plan to shoot with a chest mount, for example when mountain biking, then I would recommend the Ace Pro 2. It's better suited for mounting on a chest mount. A 360 image also offers hardly any advantage for this type of recording. If on the other hand you tend to film with a pole, perhaps when skiing, then I would definitely go for the X5. A 360 camera is the ideal choice for shooting with a selfie stick, if only because of the invisible selfie stick effect. Incidentally, there are special mounts for all kinds of activities for both cameras. As a travel camera and for the family, I would prefer a very simple device and therefore go for the Ace Pro 2. You don't have to reframe the shots, the Ace Pro 2 is a little easier to use, And the flip-up display also allows you to film yourself and your family. But the X5 is of course also well suited as a travel camera, especially as the extremely wide viewing angle allows you to get a lot in the same frame. Well, and what would I personally do? I would personally go for the X5. I have a lot of experience with action cameras, and I simply appreciate the many creative possibilities that a 360 camera offers. I also like the very wide look of the X5. And as you could see today, the difference in image quality is actually not that big anymore. As I said, you can find a link to both cameras in the video description. Take a look at the current offers. You'll usually get a free gift as well, although the offer with the lens replacement kit for the X5 is limited. If you want to find out more about the X5, take a look at my detailed tutorial on the X5, in which I explain the most important features of this great camera. And give me a like as feedback if this video was interesting for you. There will be more videos about the X5 and the Ace Pro 2, so stay tuned and see you next time.